Do you think do you mean that was kind of 7 years after the divorce? Do you think had a lot of anger issues on the back of that, do you think?
Uh, I possibly. Only just a couple of years ago, you told me something that I had never heard before, but kind of broke my heart, but I could understand it. When we got the three of you together to tell you that we were going to be divorcing or separating. I don't know how we said it, but because I don't know that we had said we would divorce at that time, but Dad would be moving out. You told me just a few years ago that you knew then that you would have to depend on yourself. And for me to think of a 7-year-old, it's like, for me, the ultimate, stay-at-home mother. That's sad to me because I never wanted you to. Divorce has always hurt kids, but I really wanted to minimize it. It wasn't my doing. It wasn't my initiative. And yet here I am with you, and I really, 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 two things. I didn't want you to be hurt, and I didn't want you to feel like you had to raise your younger sister because she was so much younger. I just didn't want you to feel like you were the in-home, built-in babysitter. And I went to great lengths to make sure that you had a childhood. That was really important to me, and that's why I hired a college student to move in. And it was great because I couldn't afford to pay a nanny. So it was free. I didn't pay them anything. They got free room and board, which saved a lot, and they had a car. They
He
had
was a male figure too, which
and
we
he
really
was
craved.
exactly,
And
yeah.
I think I needed that.
You did. He was a he was a serious university student, yet he would hike with you in the canyons, and and what was really amazing about Bill is that he really knew how to calm you down. And I noticed that he would say, I'd say, because you'd lose your temper, right? It's normal. But he would just put his arms around you like that and just kind of hold you in a shoulder lock until your emotion just kind of went away. And then he would talk to you about it. And I said to Bill, well, where did you learn that? That was amazing to me because I didn't tell him that. And he came out of a very difficult home with a lot of abuse.
Okay.
Yeah.
And each one of us had a different reaction to the divorce. For
Yes.
me, and probably based on our personality and based on our age.
It could be. You're 7, and you told me that realization, which, it makes me sad that you had it, but I'm glad you were honest with me. There was nothing I could have done to change it. Mm-hmm. Eric just, I think, internalized it, but then when he was in college, he really wanted to ask his dad about it. And I said, you have a right to ask your dad and your mom. Any details you want, it's your lives. So he was afraid to, but I encouraged him to. I said, just, you're going to see him tomorrow, ask him. He was home for a weekend or something. So he did. Yeah, he did. And I said, keep doing it. You have a right to know. We're a family. You're the children. We're the parents. We should always be able to ask our parents any question. So he did that. And I think Claire was the hardest on. Why? Because I don't want to say it was any more difficult for her than all three of you. I think that it's a tragedy for any child. But she was so sensitive that she just kept waking up in the night and crying for her dad over and over. She'd get sick at school. I'd go get her. We'd take her to our pediatrician, who was such a great, figure. And right away, he could see it was psychosomatic. And he would ask her questions. And she really missed him and just couldn't get over it emotionally. She was just distraught. And I'd say for a long time, months, maybe a year even. And I'd call your dad and say, could you see her more often? Because he only saw you 2 times a month. And I said, just on an occasional Wednesday, could you pick her up? And he would for a while, but then, it would drift off. And that was how it affected her. So she woke up a lot in the night and just came into my bed, and it was fine. It was easy for me. Just let her sleep with me, and it was, that was how she handled that. She also had some emotional concerns in high school and saw a counselor as well. I'm not saying about the divorce. Remember, she was only 2 at the time.
Okay.
She was
Yeah.
quite a bit younger, or 3. Yeah,
3, yeah.
3. Right.
For me, you know, when I do these plant medicine ceremonies and these ayahuasca ceremonies, like most times it goes back to that moment when I was 7, and then you told us about the divorce, and I think for some reason with my personality, I was just like, I just built these walls all up around me at that time, and that was just like,
Yeah.
so it was like.
Yeah.
I think I just built these walls up, and then later I realized I had built them up. So I think it was just like
Wow. How much later?
I mean, like, you know, I guess 30 years later or whatever when I did this. Then I think I realized I was just trying to keep people out of my life so they wouldn't hurt me.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that's what that
Girlfriends,
was.
potential
Yeah,
girlfriends. Yeah, especially.
Anybody
of
that
course.
could hurt me.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah. That's right. And anyone that would hurt you would be someone that would emotionally be close to you, someone that you liked or fell in love with, or, you know, would be then all of a sudden a threat. Yeah,
I
which
think
is so-
I think I would even sabotage relationships when I felt maybe I was getting too dependent on someone because they might leave. And definitely had a few friendships that when they ever did something bad, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I thought you would do, because I was just kind of in this, just ready to just have that justified. You know, have that, just be like, oh yeah, as I expected, as I was taught my whole life that opening up my heart to someone is always going to end in this kind of thing. So,
And that was how you, and that was how you, that was how you protected yourself, was by pushing people away and justifying it, and then you wouldn't get hurt.
Right. But then I also realized that kept me lonely and isolated. So when I looked at my life, I was this guy that would never, and that made me unhappy too. So I built this wall that just made me unhappy. So I had to realize that I had to let people in my life, and yes, they can hurt me, but that's the only way I can be happy and live. So that's what Gabby was about, and Mariana, and now the boys. And sometimes I still think like they could all hurt me so much. But like if something happened to them, and all, but it's like now I understand that that's the trade-off I have to make to live a real life. So, but it's also really selfish of me to like blame that on you and Dad in the divorce, because, I mean, how were you feeling at the time? I mean, what was it like for you?
Yeah, well, you can imagine. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I crashed and burned. I never, his parents and my parents were both married 50 years plus. That was my reality. It's like, this can't be real, you know? So, yeah, it was really hard, really hard. Yeah, I would know, I was really distraught. Yeah, it was a really tough time. It was, I mean, it was almost surreal. It was just like, this can't be real. I mean, I'd never... Honestly, I had never been around anyone who was divorced or had parents who were divorced. It was just really, So when I did confront your dad, you know, I was a mess. I ran away. I found my stress behaviors to run away. And it was the first time. So we had a long talk, and I'm crying and all of that, and I just said, I'm leaving. I don't know when, if, what. So I went to my friend Nancy and her husband Ray Kipp, because they're the only ones that I had known that had gone through something similar. They lived in University City here in San Diego, and I talked to them, and then I called Errol and Naoma, and I could hardly talk on the phone. I was crying. They didn't even know what was wrong with me. I said, can I come up? I won't get there till 9 at night. And they said, yes, come up. What's wrong? Can you drive? And so I went up there, and I talked with them all night. They talked, and so I talked to the Ray and Nancy till 9, and then I went up there, and we talked till 4 in the morning. And they were so good. They were, you know, I mean, and I had never let down my emotions to anyone like that, but I just said to your dad, I just don't know if I can even come back, you know, or if or when, or, I mean, I just don't know. So, you know, I left. Claire was still breastfeeding because she was the late one, you know, and she's the one that was the cuddly mama's girl. And that morning when we got back up again, Errol said to me, you need to go back. You need to call Freeman and give him a chance. And I appreciated that he said that, you know, and they were a really good anchor for me because they know your dad well. And they also, you know, when, you know, Errol was a wild guy in college, and Naomi didn't even know if he was going to show up at the altar. He was that, I mean, he was like off the wall, and yet look at the dedicated marriage they've had. I mean, he would go to the moon for her and back. So he said to me, I understand Freeman. I'm a man. I understand Freeman. You have to give him a chance. And I'm grateful for that he did. Yeah, I am. I am, because he was right. I did. And I knew in my heart I couldn't leave you kids. I mean, I was just in the, you know, I was just in the pit of despair, and I had to sort of get my head on and talk to people, yeah.